In November of 2021, I was traveling from Philadelphia to Las Vegas to compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament. I travel across the country quite a bit. Usually, I'll stay with whichever teams are also competing as a way to save money. But this time, for a few different reasons, I had to stay alone. I booked an Airbnb not far from the Vegas Strip. I did it hastily, scrolling past the details and focusing more on the price and location. What I didn't realize was that the neighborhood wasn't exactly the best. At first, I thought about canceling and finding somewhere else. But against my instincts, I rationalized it. It's close to everything I need, I told myself. I'll hardly even be there. It's fine. When I arrived, I didn't see the host. Not that I would have known who to look for anyway. The profile picture on Airbnb was just a flower. No face, no name, nothing. The host, who I'll call Mira, had sent me a message earlier with the key code to the room. It was a small studio apartment attached to Myra's house. The two shared a wall, and there was only one way in and out, a single door. The first red flag was the key code itself. It was 12345667. I stared at it for a second and laughed nervously. That's secure, I muttered under my breath. But then I noticed the Wi-Fi password taped to the counter. Password. At this point, I figured maybe Mira was just older, not very tech-savvy. Besides, the Airbnb reviews for the place were surprisingly good. So I brushed off my unease. By 9:30 p.m., I was stretched out on the bed, scrolling on my phone and close to dozing off. That's when I heard it. Talp, talp, talp. It was coming from the window, the one directly across from where I lay. The drapes were drawn shut, so I couldn't see anything. I sat up, staring at the window. Huh, I said out loud. My voice sounded much calmer than I felt. Silence. A minute passed, maybe two. Then, tap, tap, tap. This time I raised my voice. Hello. The sound stopped again. Now my heart was racing. I picked up my phone and sent Mira a quick message. Hey, was it you tapping on my window? An hour crawled by before she responded. I was going to bring you some water, but it seemed like you were asleep, so I left. Something about her wording didn't sit right with me. She tapped on my window. Why not knock on the door? Why not just send a text? I knew sleep wasn't going to come easy now. I considered taking a shower or even going for a walk to clear my head. But something deep inside me said, don't move. Stay here. Around 45 minutes later, it was close to midnight. That's when I heard it. The faint sound of someone outside. I froze, straining my ears. Then I heard the keypad on my door. Someone was entering random numbers, try to unlock it. Beep, beep, beep. A failed attempt. And then, click. The sound of the lock disengaging. I jumped out of bed as the door creaked, opened toward me. In a split second, I slammed it shut with my whole body weight and shouted, This is MY room. Get out of here. Leave. From the other side, a deep voice growled. This is my room. I need to come in. My stomach dropped. That was Myra's name on the Airbnb account. But this voice? It wasn't Mira. It sounded wrong. I shouted louder. This is my room. I'm calling the cops. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, speaking just loudly enough for whoever was out there to hear every word. The operator told me to stay on the line and stay put. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears as I pressed against the door. Finally, I heard footsteps retreating. The police showed up a few minutes later. They listened to my story, and their lack of surprise made my skin crawl. They said they'd wait outside until I packed my things and called an Uber. When Mira finally showed up, she was hostile and unapologetic. Her explanation for the person at my door kept changing. First, she claimed it was her. Then she said it was a relative. The cops didn't buy it. Neither did I. By the time my Uber arrived, I practically dove into the car. The sense of relief I felt pulling away from that house was overwhelming. To this day, I never saw the face of the person who tried to come into my room. Was it Mira? A stranger? Or was it all some kind of setup? The timing still bothers me. Mira knew I was flying in from the East Coast. At 9:30 p.m., I would have been exhausted, still on my home time zone. The tapping on the window, that would have been 12:30 a.m. for me. And when they tried the door around midnight. Back home, that would have been 3 a.m. Maybe it was just going to be a robbery. But in the back of my mind, I can't shake the thought that it could have been something far worse. In the summer of 2016, my boyfriend Eli and I took a trip to Vermont. We wanted something peaceful and different, so I booked us a stay in an Airbnb that was listed as an off-grid cabin. It had hundreds of glowing reviews and a 5-star rating, so I didn't think twice about it. Nothing about it seemed sketchy at first. The cabin was an old, one-room structure with a potbelly stove and a small loft for sleeping. There was no electricity, no running water. It sat deep in a remote part of Vermont, down a long dirt road that seemed to stretch forever. There was only one other house nearby, about half a mile away. That house belonged to the host, but she had told us she would be gone for the week, meaning we were completely alone. We arrived around 4 p.m. and spent the evening cooking dinner together and playing board games by candlelight. The quiet was almost soothing, and after hiking all day, we were exhausted. By 10 p.m., I climbed up to the loft to sleep, while Eli stayed outside for a bit longer to enjoy a smoke under the stars. About 20 minutes later, while I was drifting between that hazy space of near sleep and full awareness, a sudden, heavy bang jolted me awake. It came from the side of the cabin. Before I could even yell out, Eli's voice called up from outside. "Was that you?" My heart was racing as I croaked back, "No." "Was it you?" He replied, "No, but maybe it's nothing." His tone was calm, almost too calm, but I could tell, even from up in the loft, that something about it had him on edge. We're no strangers to camping. We've spent countless nights in the woods, so random nighttime noises don't usually spook us. We both brushed it off, thinking maybe a tree branch had fallen and struck the cabin. I tried to relax, settling back under the blankets. But then came another noise. A second bang, louder this time, and from another part of the cabin. I shot out of bed and hurried down from the loft, heart pounding in my chest. Eli was already stepping back inside. "Grab all the sharp things you can find," he said in a hushed but firm tone. His calmness seemed rehearsed, like he was trying not to freak me out. But his eyes told me everything. He was scared. "What do you think it is?" I whispered. "I don't know," he said. "I didn't see anything outside, but I think I heard footsteps." We froze as a new sound started, a faint, deliberate scraping noise, dragging slowly across one of the cabin walls. 3 feet, maybe more, then silence. I clutched a few steak knives in my trembling hands. Our car was parked about 100 feet away, but the thought of stepping outside into that darkness, knowing something or someone was out there, sent chills down my spine. What if they slashed the tires? I whispered. What if they blocked the driveway? Eli didn't answer right away. Instead, he told me to go back up to the loft while he stayed downstairs with a hunting knife and a sturdy wooden stick. I didn't want to leave him alone down there. But he insisted. "If someone comes in, I can deal with them better without worrying about you," he said. Reluctantly, I obeyed. I climbed back up and sat in the middle of the bed, clutching the knives tightly. Eli called out loudly, "Hello." The word echoed through the woods outside, but there was no reply. Nothing but heavy, suffocating silence. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. It felt like forever. Then came the scraping again, louder this time, like metal dragging along wood. And then footsteps, deliberate, measured, slow, crunch, crunch, crunch. They circled the cabin, pausing occasionally, only to resume again. At one point, Eli climbed up to the loft and pulled the ladder up with him. "I don't like how they can see me, but I can't see them," he whispered. "If they come in, we'll at least have the high ground." We sat together in the dark, staring at each other with wide, terrified eyes. The noises outside continued, banging, scraping, pacing. It was methodical, purposeful. This wasn't an animal. There were no growls, no snorts, no random crashing. Only the sound of careful footsteps and something metallic dragging against the cabin walls. The hours crawled by. Finally, around 5 a.m., we heard roosters crowing faintly in the distance. Dawn's light began to creep into the loft, and the noises stopped. We stayed frozen for a while longer, barely daring to breathe. When it felt safe, we climbed down, packed up our things, and bolted to the car. Eli scanned the area for footprints or scrape marks, but there was nothing. No signs that anyone or anything had been there at all. I messaged the Airbnb host later to tell her what happened. She replied casually, "Oh, it was probably a porcupine." A porcupine? One that makes heavy banging noises, drags metal against wood, and walks on 2 feet? Even now, neither of us fully knows what to believe. Eli thinks it was a local trying to scare us off. But me? I'm just grateful we made it out of that cabin alive. In November of 2021, I booked an Airbnb in a quiet corner of Arizona. I was traveling there for a job interview, and since it was hours away from home, I figured I'd make a short trip out of it. The Airbnb was much cheaper than any of the hotels I could find nearby. It was tucked away off a dead-end, secluded road, surrounded by desert brush and sand that seemed to stretch for miles. The pictures online showed a cozy little house with big windows and a view of the endless desert. It felt peaceful. I figured it would be perfect. I stayed for 3 days. My interview was scheduled for Tuesday, the second day, and I planned to leave Friday morning. The first night, I set up in the small living room with my laptop, practicing interview questions and reading everything I could about the company. It was around 9 p.m. when I heard it. A faint tap on the window to my left. Not a knock, not the wind. It sounded deliberate, like the tip of a finger gently pressing against the glass. I froze for a second, my head snapping toward the sound. The window was pitch black. The desert beyond swallowed all the light. I stared for a moment before forcing myself to get up. Slowly, I inched closer and pulled back the curtain. Nothing. Just an empty, dark desert. I exhaled, laughing nervously to myself. Probably just a bug, I muttered. Arizona has its fair share of huge, creepy insects. The next day, my interview went surprisingly well. Feeling good, I spent the rest of the trip exploring the little town nearby, eating at small restaurants, and in the evenings sitting on the back porch to soak in the warm sunset. But what I didn't know, what chills me even now, is that I was probably being watched. That night, as I lay stretched out on the couch binge-watching Breaking Bad on my laptop, it happened again. Another tap on the window. This time, there was no mistaking it. It wasn't a bug. I sat bolt upright, staring at the same window from before. My heart thudded as I slowly got up and walked over, pressing my face against the glass to peer out. Again, nothing. But that didn't mean no one was out there. A knot of unease twisted in my stomach. I checked all the windows near the front door, then cracked the door open and stepped outside for just a second. Silence. The cool desert air felt heavy. Deciding not to linger, I shut the door and checked the back porch. The view was still and quiet. But then, from somewhere beyond the reach of the porch light, I heard it. A clicking sound. It was soft but deliberate, like someone clicking their tongue against the roof of their mouth. It sent a chill shooting down my spine. I peered into the dark desert. The bushes, the uneven terrain, the endless shadows. Someone could easily be hiding out there, watching me. "Hey," I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. "You're on private property. Leave now, or I'm calling the cops." At first, silence. Then another click. This time, it came from a spot farther to the left. And then I saw him. A figure, tall, dressed in dark clothes, blending perfectly into the night, stood just beyond the porch light's glow. For a moment, we stared at each other across the desert void. I took one step forward but stopped immediately. My gut screamed at me not to get any closer. "You need to leave. Now," I shouted again. The figure didn't say a word. Instead, they turned and walked away quickly, eerily quick. I stood frozen for a few seconds, then backed into the house and locked every door and window. I didn't sleep well that night. The following evening, I tried to push the memory aside. I distracted myself with another few episodes of Breaking Bad, but the thought of that dark figure out there lingered in my mind like a shadow. I turned off the light and slid under the covers, determined to get some sleep before heading home in the morning. But within seconds of closing my eyes, I heard it again. Click. This time, it came from inside the room. My eyes flew open, landing on the closet door. It was open just a crack. For a long moment, I didn't move. Then instinct took over. I bolted from the bed, still in my pajamas, grabbed my keys off the nightstand, and sprinted out to my car. Slamming the door shut, I fumbled to start the engine, my hands shaking violently. I called 911 and sat in the driveway with the car running, staring at the little house, waiting to see if anyone emerged. A police car pulled up within minutes. 2 officers went inside while I waited in their vehicle. When they came back out, they told me they didn't find anyone. No signs of forced entry. But all I could think about was how easily the Airbnb host could have had a spare key. Or maybe it wasn't the host. Maybe it was a stranger who found an opportunity. Either way, I wasn't staying another night. I packed my things with the police watching over me, then left for a nearby hotel. Airbnb offered only a partial refund after I filed a complaint. But to this day, I still wonder, was it the host? Or was it someone else, someone who'd been watching me since the moment I arrived?